Why do most of us feel such a deep need to explain ourselves? Evolutionary psychology gives us a clue. Thousands of years ago, belonging to a tribe was a matter of life and death. Being ostracized meant vulnerability to predators, starvation, or worse. So, explaining ourselves, showing we're safe or valuable, was a survival tactic. But as Dr. David Rock explains in his SCARF model in 2008, our brains still process social threats the same way they process physical ones. Rejection feels like death, even if it isn't. Our need for validation is ancient, but today's world no longer demands it for survival. Let me ask you this. Do you ever feel trapped, like you're running on a hamster wheel, chasing goals that aren't really yours? Trying to impress people you don't truly connect with? Buying things you don't really need? Shaping your life around 1,000 silent expectations? What if I told you one of the most radical secrets to breaking free comes not from a modern guru, but from a man who lived over 2,000 years ago, in a barrel? Today, we'll uncover how one ancient rebel unlocked that freedom, and how you can too. By the end of this video, I'll leave you with one question that might just change the way you see your entire life. In the 4th century BCE, when the city of Athens pulsed with debates, philosophy, and political ambition, there lived a man who spit in the face of it all, literally. His name was Diogenes of Sinope, the ultimate philosophical bomb thrower, the original cynic. Now, when we hear cynic today, we think of someone sarcastic and distrustful, but ancient cynicism, pioneered by Diogenes, was something far more profound and, frankly, bizarre. Where Socrates pursued truth through dialogue, Diogenes embodied it through action. Picture Athens around the 4th century BC, a bustling city, post-Peloponnesian War, filled with complex social hierarchies, political maneuvering, and a burgeoning obsession with wealth, status, and reputation. Into this steps Diogenes, a man who legend says was exiled for defacing currency. Literally stamping on money, a fitting start for someone who would spend his life challenging society's counterfeit values. Diogenes didn't just preach rejecting convention, he lived it, performatively and aggressively. He famously took up residence not in a house, but in a large ceramic jar or tub in the marketplace. He owned almost nothing: a cloak, a staff, a cup, which he reportedly threw away after seeing a child drink from its hands, realizing even a cup was an unnecessary luxury. He deliberately flouted social norms. He took to eating in the marketplace, which was a social taboo, and urinating or masturbating in public. Actions designed not just to shock, but as living demonstrations against arbitrary customs and the shame associated with natural bodily functions. As historian Luis Navia puts it in Diogenes the Cynic, the war against the world, these weren't random acts of insanity, but a sustained campaign against the customs and conventions that enslave most human beings. He famously wandered Athens in broad daylight, holding a lit lamp, claiming he was looking for an honest man, implying society was shrouded in a metaphorical darkness of hypocrisy. His goal wasn't comfort or acceptance. It was self-sufficiency and living in accordance with nature, rejecting law or custom wherever it conflicted with those. He believed virtue, living according to reason and nature, was the only good, and everything else, wealth, power, reputation, even suffering, was indifferent. This philosophy reached its zenith in perhaps the most famous philosophical encounter in history. Alexander the Great, the most powerful man in the known world, fresh from military triumphs, came to see this infamous philosopher. Surrounded by his court, Alexander stood before Diogenes, who was sunning himself, and magnanimously offered, "Ask of me any boon you like." Diogenes, without moving, simply replied, "Stand out of my sunlight." Think about that. The sheer, unadulterated audacity, but more importantly, the psychological bedrock beneath it. Alexander offered external power, wealth, influence, everything society tells us to crave. Diogenes needed none of it. His request wasn't just dismissive, it was a declaration. Your world of power and possessions has nothing I value. My needs are fundamental: sunlight and nature. Everything else you offer is a complication, an illusion. He demonstrated in that moment, perhaps the ultimate internal locus of control. His sense of well-being wasn't dependent on the approval or gifts of even the most powerful man alive. So, why did Diogenes go to such extremes? Psychologically, he was conducting a radical experiment in freedom by attacking the core mechanisms that trap us. By rejecting possessions, he fought against what we now call the hedonic treadmill, the endless pursuit of more stuff that never brings lasting happiness. By flouting social norms, he was challenging the powerful grip of social conformity and the deep-seated fear of negative evaluation, the worry about what others think, which Adlerian psychology, as discussed in The Courage to be Disliked, identifies as a root of unhappiness. Diogenes understood, perhaps intuitively, that seeking external validation is a psychological prison. If your happiness depends on others' approval, you become their slave. His public shamelessness, or what they called autarkeia, wasn't just for shock value. It was a way to immunize himself against social judgment, proving that shame itself is often just an artificial social construct. Okay, let's pause here. Diogenes lived in a barrel to prove a point. We don't need to do that. But think honestly for a second. What possessions? Not just physical things, but maybe job titles, online personas, specific relationships, or even just the need to seem put together or successful. Are you holding on too tightly because you think they define your worth in other people's eyes? What unnecessary burden are you carrying just to avoid potential disapproval? Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments. It's a tough question, I know. What's one barrel you could metaphorically step out of? It's fascinating to consider, right? Now, let's crystallize this into the Diogenes hack. Not a literal guide to public indecency, but a mindset for radical freedom. First, identify your sunlight. Like Diogenes, figure out what is truly essential for your core well-being, independent of external opinion. Is it creativity, connection, learning, peace? Be brutally honest. Second, question the conventions. What societal rules, expectations, or desires are you following on autopilot? Ask why. Do they genuinely align with your sunlight? Or are they just things you feel obligated to want or do? This is about challenging the nomos. Third, practice value triage. This is the core of ignoring almost everyone. It's not about being rude, it's about consciously choosing not to give mental energy or emotional weight to opinions, criticisms, or desires, yours or others, that don't serve your essential sunlight. Learn selective indifference. Most external noise is just that, noise. Fourth, internalize your freedom. Recognize that true freedom, true autarkeia, isn't something granted by wealth, status, or permission. It's a state of mind cultivated by aligning your actions with your core, natural values, and detaching your self-worth from external outcomes or judgments. I remember early in my career, I was obsessed with climbing the ladder, getting the right title, making sure everyone knew I was competent. I spent so much energy managing perceptions. Then I stumbled across Diogenes and stories like his. It wasn't that I suddenly quit my job and looked for a barrel, but it was a stark reminder how much of that striving was for me and how much was for an imagined audience. It helped me start that value triage, focusing more on the work itself, the learning, my sunlight, and letting go, bit by bit, of the paralyzing need for everyone to approve. It's still a work in progress, believe me. Now, let's be clear. Diogenes paid a price. He was mocked, likely lonely, definitely uncomfortable. As philosopher Peter Sloterdijk notes in Critique of Cynical Reason, cynicism involves a certain cynical provocation, a deliberate breaking of norms that doesn't always win friends. This radical freedom requires sacrificing the comfort of easy social acceptance. The hack isn't about being liked. Sometimes it's about having the courage to be disliked, as Kishimi and Koga would say, in service of living authentically according to your nature. It's accepting that not everyone will understand or approve, and that's okay. Their approval isn't your sunlight. So how does this ancient barrel-dwelling eccentric help us navigate the 21st century? The pressures are different. Less about public urination taboos, maybe, more about curated Instagram feeds, LinkedIn posturing, political echo chambers demanding conformity, or just the quiet tyranny of always trying to be nice and agreeable. The external validation machine is louder than ever. The Diogenes hack is a filter. It's a call to constantly ask, is this essential? Does this align with my nature, my virtue, my sunlight? Or is it just noise? Is it just a rule someone else made up that I don't need to follow? Radical freedom, Diogenes teaches us, begins with radical self-awareness and the courage to shed the non-essential, especially the need for constant external approval. It's about finding power not in what others think of you, but in what you know to be true and valuable for yourself. So, I'll leave you with this. Diogenes knew his sunlight was more valuable than anything Alexander the Great could offer. What's your non-negotiable sunlight? And, maybe more importantly, what external expectations or desires are currently standing in its way? What would you be willing to ignore, to let go of, to truly live in it? Let's build a community around finding that authentic freedom. Share your thoughts on your sunlight and the shadows you're trying to step out of in the comments below. Thanks for exploring this piece of historic psychology with me. If you found this valuable, you know the drill. Subscribe and hit that bell. Until next time, keep questioning.